This is the third time we have been displaced from this city. We moved to Mazar-e-Sharif. From Mazar, we went to West Kabul, then we went to Taimani. From Taimani, we came back to our original home. In those places, we lived in the homes of others. Now, in spite of all this, we are hoping that the United Nations and also our government won't let these things happen to us again, because we are helpless and vulnerable people. We want our men to have a place to work, and we want peace in our country. We don't want to live in foreign lands.
The most obvious damage from war is physical. The devastated houses and buildings and infrastructure in Kabul and in other cities and villages are a stark testament to the destruction to which civilians have been exposed and from which they have been forced to flee. The enormous loss of civilian lives through the years of conflict are a bitter harvest of political strife and instability, and many who survived are cruelly disadvantaged for the rest of their lives. But deeper down, below the evident physical destruction, there is the profound impact of the traumatic conflict on the psychological and social well-being of Afghans that perhaps will only become apparent in future generations. The situation in Afghanistan poses a complex dilemma to the international community's efforts to assist the civilian population. On the one hand, we fully recognize the need to help displaced persons taking refuge in other communities in the short term through providing emergency food supplies. On the other hand, we know that the only long-term solution is for people to return to their home areas and rebuild their lives. It is clear that it is not only the presence of landmines in villages and towns that prevent people from returning. The absence of a credible system of trust and social organization can remain a critical obstacle to people's decision to return, even after landmines have been removed. Since 1989, Habitat has been actively supporting indigenous rehabilitation initiatives of rural and urban communities in Afghanistan. In rural areas like Karabakh, the ancient underground gravity-fed water channels, or kares, were maintained by the communities under the management of the traditional district community groups of village elders, or shuras. The kares water channels, which lie up to 20 meters below the surface, need to be cleaned periodically to prevent mud from clogging up the system. Mr. Mohammed Daud Kakar explained how the rehabilitation of the water system has stimulated the return of hundreds of families to the district.
In these 2 to 4 years, those who fled have started to come back. These areas were once dry. These vineyards, these houses, were completely run down, but since the organizations have paid attention to this, the water system has been rehabilitated, and these places have become green again. The people have a deep love for their land, and these refugees, these people, poor people, when they came back to this place, the shuras were formed, and consultations were held for solving problems, and efforts were made to develop the area. With the help of external agencies, more returnees will come to rebuild our villages. Before these redevelopment activities, there were a lot of difficulties. There was not a drop of water for them to mix the mud with, to build a shelter, a room for guests, for the family.
The large influx of returnees and displacement of people within Kabul has put pressure on services that even before the conflict were rudimentary. Given the limited extent of municipal collection, solid and human waste has accumulated in many densely inhabited districts, raising the risks of epidemics of typhoid and cholera, as most people rely on shallow water sources which are vulnerable to contamination. Communities are being involved in the rehabilitation of the infrastructure to create employment and revive community spirit. A Shura leader stressed people's need for livelihoods.
Let me explain. It's clear that Afghan people do not like to eat for nothing, and they want to earn an income from their work. If employment is available, we would not have demands or requests for assistance. But there are other groups, disabled or widows, who do not have any breadwinners. They need some assistance. But people believe if employment is found for them so that they can work, they could make ends meet on their own.
In various districts of Kabul, communities, in coordination with the Municipal Waste Disposal Department, are clearing away the accumulated garbage on a community contract basis. Each worker receives a daily wage of 3,500 afs, which is just enough to feed a family of 7. The community representatives have been encouraged to see the upgrading process as a commercial venture, in order to bring home the notion of a contract between donor and beneficiaries. The donor is risking its investment in the community, which in turn is risking its efforts at mobilization and organization. The municipality provides trucks to carry the garbage to a dump site. Similarly, the traditional system for the distribution of surface irrigation water in the city, which had all but broken down because of the difficulties of organizing community labor during the conflict, is also being rehabilitated through community contracts. As fewer than 1 in 5 families in the city have access to safe water, a number of agencies, including Habitat, are working with the communities on improving water supplies by digging wells and installing hand pumps. The scale of the task is immense, as people begin to re-inhabit a wider geographic area within the city. In the last 2 years, hundreds of deep and shallow wells have been installed in various districts of the city. The siting of the wells is decided upon by the communities in consultation with the municipality. In high-density areas of the city, covered wells fitted with hand pumps have been introduced to protect the water source from contamination. The hand pumps that are being installed here under Habitat's program have been designed and improved for the ease of installation and maintenance. The pump costs less than other alternatives, and spare parts can be produced locally. It is widely agreed that water is the key to the re-establishment of war-affected communities in their homes in Kabul. At present, the pumps are being manufactured in Islamabad by an Afghan NGO, Aryan Tech. Afghan refugees fabricate all the components and assemble a range of pumps for urban and rural use. The manager explained his organization's experience and future plans.
This hand pump has been designed in Afghanistan and has produced in Afghanistan. Because of the war in Afghanistan, we shift our workshop here in Islamabad. And now we have plans to transfer this technology first in Kabul, later on in Mazar, Herat and Kandahar. Therefore, we are manufacturing templates and dies for manufacturing of these hand pumps. Because local workshop could manufacture these hand pumps by the help of these templates.
Despite the dietary privations for many, despite the absence of electricity, despite the lack of health care, and despite the war and uncertainty, more than 1 million people continue to live their lives in Kabul. With increased signs of peace, the city is regaining its old vitality. In the streets, there is a hopeful mood and an eagerness to put the grim years of war behind. Small-scale industries are starting to spring up, generating much-needed jobs for people who are fundamentally destitute when they return to the city. Afghans are not only hard-working people, they are skillful and creative as well. In such an environment, even minor investments in small-scale enterprises have great potential for the economic recovery of the city. Those transporting goods into Kabul must pay a toll to those who control the access roads. Consequently, the price of bread, the staple food, has risen 36-fold in the last 3 years, while that of other basic foods has doubled or tripled. Every day, more and more refugees are arriving in Kabul with the hope of rebuilding their lives. In order to preserve that hope, it is absolutely necessary that they find access to basic needs and employment. Returnees and displaced people face even greater demands as they set about rebuilding their ruined homes with no financial reserves at their disposal. The tenacity and courage of the communities living in such challenging circumstances is astonishing. Mr. Mohammed Taher, who is rebuilding his home for the second time, described his reason for returning.
When peace returns to this area, if the government forces establish their authority in this area, even then we wouldn't have a place. What would we do? Because we are shelterless and have no peace of mind, we came back here again. And as you can see, we cannot afford to hire a labourer, and I am putting my own labour, day and night, with my elderly father to erect these mud walls.
Some 50,000 families will need to rebuild or undertake substantial repairs to their homes. As some southern and eastern districts of the city become accessible again, few families will be able to move back to their neighbourhoods without some investment in repairs to the damaged infrastructure. The people of Afghanistan are tired of war and uncertainty. They have the courage to return and start their lives again. By helping them now in this fragile process of rehabilitation, we can help them to develop confidence in the future and to contribute to an enduring peace for their country.